Hey, random people out there on the internet. The next in my beginner series, we're going to revisit materials yet once again. Today I wanted to talk about wood, specifically wood. And if you watch a lot of YouTubers, you'll hear them refer to different parts of the wood in different ways. So today I thought I'd explain that for those that may not know. So here's a typical piece of wood. It's pine. It's grains, knots, blah, blah, blah. So the first thing you need to know is that people will talk about which face of the wood they're looking at, or which facet. In this case, this part's called the face. This part's called the edge. And this part's called the end. So when they talk about face grain, or they talk about edge grain, or end grain, that's what they're talking about. Now, when you look at a piece of wood, you see several things on it, features. So, I spoke to this earlier in another video, but if the wood has a bow in it along the face, like this, that's called a crown. Anywhere that you see a knot, you'll see that it goes out into these points like this. That's called a cathedral. The reason it's important to know, if you're planing, your planer blades can peel a cathedral and leave you with a bad surface. And then of course the lines, these are all grain. And anywhere you see a nice solid dot, that's a knot. A knot is where a limb was going to grow. Now let's talk about how it runs. If we look at the end grain and we see a little black dot right there, or a brown dot, that's called the pith. That is actually the very center of the tree. So this was cut from the center of the tree, and the grain goes around the knots. So typically, if you're doing woodworking, you probably want to avoid pith. And I say that because as the wood dries out and begins to move, it's going to cup around that pit. That's called cupping. So you'll see a rise up here, and you'll see like this. And then, I said this yesterday, as you look down the grain this way, if it goes up and comes back, that's a bow. The bow is affected primarily by the grain pattern, or if there are knots on the edge of the wood. It'll wrap around the knots, it'll try to follow the grain. As the wood dries out, it'll bend itself into the shape that follows those grain patterns. And I spoke earlier about the crown being like this. The biggest effect on crown, again, is knots. Anywhere there's a knot, it tries to grow around the knots. So in this case, if this board had not already been straightened up, it would have come down this way. It might have had a little bit of a dip here, and then it would have went around the knot, come back up and go around the knot and follow the grain. And that's the way wood moves. So when you're watching the other YouTubers out there, and there are a bunch of them out there trying to help you out, that's what they're talking about when they talk about the end grain, the face grain, the edge grain, the knots, the twists, the bows, etc., etc. That's what they're trying to get across to you. So that's going to probably bring us to an end on talking about how to look at wood. We'll have another video coming up pretty soon where I'm going to continue with the project that I'm about to start, that is going to be a birdhouse, but this one's going to be made a little different. So you watch out for that. It's coming up. I appreciate your views, and I really appreciate the subscriptions. A shout out to those out there that feel moved enough to actually comment. I appreciate those comments. So, as always, be safe.